Now more than ever, innovative technologies are fueling change and sparking new ways of thinking. Collaboration between corporations and startups is key to staying at the forefront of these trends. However, finding the right startups can be expensive, time-consuming, and ineffective. But Plug and Play is here to help. As a corporate partner, you will gain access to a whole ecosystem of innovation. Discover startups that meet your tech interests. Stay updated on the latest trends and network with industry peers. We will help you during every stage of your innovation journey, no matter where you are and where you want to go. Get in touch today.
I hope everyone can hear me okay. And on the line with me, I have, as mentioned by my colleague Max, Bardot. Bardot, do you want to give the audience an introduction of yourself and perhaps your activities at HV Capital?
Definitely, yeah. Thanks for having me, first of all. Maybe a quick background on myself. So I grew up in Italy, lived in the US, UK, before settling in Germany. Software engineering background, but have spent my whole professional career in investing. So it started 16 years ago, was in the public markets first, then private equity, and for the past 10 years in venture capital. At HV, where I've been for over 8 years, I'm the fintech partner, so to say. I cover B2B, B2C, and software companies selling into financial institutions in the broader fintech spectrum. And as a fund, maybe very quickly, it's a generalist fund, multi-stage. We like to come in early and can grow up into the very late stages of the companies.
Sounds good. Thanks for the very brief introduction. And to start off the fireside chat of micro savings, and since we are starting off the event proper, in general, could you maybe share a little bit with us how and where do you see the market of savings going, and what's your kind of opinion on education literacy on the whole concept of saving money?
Sure. I mean, we're coming out of a few very interesting years in this space, and savings maybe has the boundaries between savings and investing has also become blurred. The reason for that is that obviously we come from a period of zero interest rates where the old sort of dumb saving type of concept of I just put my money on the bank account and I get something for it, but at least don't lose it, has kind of been thrown out the door. And in a zero or even negative interest rate environment, the pressure has increased to do something with that money. And that do something has blurred the lines to investing and really opened up a huge opportunity in Europe of a great population and a young population for the first time entering that investment space with a bit of a different lens to the American lens, but nevertheless, enter that space of saving/investing. And that has also been obviously made simpler by the rise of the many fintechs that enable such investments, make it easier, less bureaucratic, less paper trail prone, mobile friendly, and really available at the click of a button. So that's a bit sort of from a macro perspective, what really has happened in the past few years. And you have touched a very important point, that of education. That is obviously a central point when we talk about what's going to happen in the future, and one that needs to be ramped up in Europe. Culturally, we are in a geography where investing was very often seen as a speculative endeavor, more like gambling. The sort of culture was safe enough to buy yourself a house, and that's going to be your investment for the future. And that has seen really a huge population not reap the benefits of what is, if approached correctly, a fantastic asset class, and that of the stock markets. So to link the two together, obviously, if interest rates are zero or negative, what do savings become? Savings very often become long-term investment products, which bear sure more risks, but if the mentality going into is correct and it's not done on a day trading sort of mentality, but really that concept of I'm saving into an ETF, I'm saving into a long-term product, takes place in Europe, then that will have an incredibly positive impact for the retail markets.
Mm-hmm. I think we talked a little bit about the differences between savings and investments and this whole twofold aspect of it. From your personal perspective and from what you have seen by speaking to a lot of startup companies out there in the market, maybe you can explain a little bit about the differences between saving solutions and investment solutions. And personally, which one do you think it's more important per se? Like, do you think it's more important to build a sustainable and solid savings as an individual, or to have that, you know, in the investment attitude and habit built out along the years?
Yeah, maybe there it's important to draw on the whole spectrum, and we can start from one extreme and define savings as put money under the mattress every month or put them on a bank account and earn negative interest rates. Do I think that's a good allocation of money? No, by all means. I think it's value destructive. So inflation eats it away. You're not really accruing your money in any way. You don't have the optionality of putting leverage on it, and the list is long. Said that, is the habit of saving a good one? By all means, and that's something that we should encourage. In that, sort of allocating part of your disposable income to generating more income with the money can be a very powerful tool over the years, purely through compound interest. Which brings us a bit to the middle of the spectrum, and that's where savings and investing meet. And so the two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can save every month into a diversified portfolio that sure will bear some risks, but as long as your time horizon is long enough to weather the volatility and the ups and downs, and you can weight your investment by saving every month and having an average weighting type of concept, then that, by means, I think, is the tool that should be used by the masses. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have the more speculative investment, the more sort of day trading aspect of it, or concentrated risk investment, single stock investing, etc., which often are seen as a negative because we hear of the extreme stories, the get rich quick stories, and I lost everything in a day stories. But the reality is, even that has a place in the balanced portfolio. I mean, that's an area you should start exploring once you have true disposable assets and once you can bear the loss of that money. But as long as you are at that point and you have a diversified portfolio, then having single stock exposure, having a strong view on a trend can be a very impactful sort of investment in your portfolio. And it has also that fun aspect, right? Because you really back something you believe in, you back something you're passionate about.
Sounds good. And maybe now that we're midway through the fireside chat, I would also like to encourage our audience, if you have any questions for Babot, to just type it in the Q&A section. But to continue with our conversation, I'd like to deep dive more into the solutions or technologies that we see out there in the market. And I think, you know, a lot of these micro savings or savings applications in general, they first focus on, you know, creating a critical mass without necessarily generating any revenue per se. But once they have built this critical mass, then they start to think about monetization. What do you think about this approach? Do you think it's a problem that should trigger some concern?
Not a problem per se, but I would also say that in Europe, we are probably at the first stage of that equation, so that true monetization hasn't yet hit the market. And I think that micro savings are an incredibly powerful acquisition tool. So micro savings app turns something that's very boring, sort of, yeah, I have €2 left on my account, or I have whatever, €2 more to spend today, to something engaging, to something that people like to engage with. So making an example of the rounding app, so you buy your coffee and the extra 50 cents to the dollar you invest into a micro savings app is a perfect entry point into a habit building solution. So you kind of get into the mentality of I should save every day. And at the same time, it's an engaging solution, because all at once that 50 cents that weren't anything to brag about become a 50 cents investment into something. And you start following that something. And it's also part of that educational aspect, because you learn how the markets work, you understand what an ETF is versus stock versus crypto, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the first part of the equation. And in that also there are quite a few companies in Europe that have had that good start. Now, the next part is obviously the important question on, are these models going to survive, or are they going to be part of something totally different, and are they only going to be marketing acquisition tools? And if you ask me, this model almost by definition have to become platforms to sell something else, because through micro savings, it's really hard to get to enough AUM to really make it a fund management model. However, you also would have access to a number of accounts that the average fund manager doesn't have. And through PSD2 and through the wonders of connecting to bank accounts, you can start sucking in a lot of data about these customers, and you become the perfect platform to then partner with insurances, banks selling other banking products, doing utility bill switching, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the vision of all these companies. I think we still have to see them evolving into that, but the beginning is definitely very encouraging.
Yeah, sounds good. And I think a lot of the people on the line today, at least our audience, they are mostly also within the financial sector industry. So perhaps working in one of these large corporations looking to partner with these micro saving applications. I know you currently mentioned that we're developing that, but what do you think would be a perfect model for these corporations to partner with all of these kind of savings applications? Do you think it's better to partner with one, or simply just to create one of their own?
No, I think they should partner, and partnering is by far the most powerful tool, because ultimately, what do the big corporations want? They want to sell their products. And it's much more powerful to have 10, 50, 100 distribution channels than have one that's built in-house, which probably is not your bread and butter anyway. So as a corporation, probably you won't reach those viral sort of metrics that the best performing app will reach. Can you buy one of these apps? Sure, you could acquire, but really, if your goal is to distribute your products, nothing speaks against partnering with as many as possible. And that's, for instance, a thing we have seen reinsurers do in the insurtech space. They sit at the back of a lot of insurtech companies, and that's totally fine. Yep.
Yeah, sounds good. I think we are also running short of time with this fireside chat. I'm just looking at the Q&A section if there's any questions from the audience. So maybe another prompt to the audience at this point to submit your questions via the Q&A section. But perhaps I would like to wrap up maybe our
We do have one question. I don't know if you see it as well, or if it's just me.
Okay.
I'll read it out loud. Personal finance management is a pretty unsexy topic. What is it going to take to get people interested in taking an active part in better managing their budgets and growing their wealth? This is something that I spend a lot of time with the portfolio companies I have. And I think part of the answer to that is counterintuitive, but I think is getting customers into the spaces they shouldn't get into as the first time. So the more speculative areas of investing. Why? Because getting somebody that's already bored with the topic into an ETF that makes most sense for him or her, but doesn't really do much. And at the end of the year, you earn 5-6% on 100 euros. It doesn't make it any more exciting. So the topic kind of gets lost in translation. But if at the beginning of a journey, you have little money to play with or lose, and that doesn't hurt you, then the effect of putting those first 20 euros, 50 euros in a stock you like, in a fractional Tesla stock, whatever excites you, gets you that initial excitement. Probably you're going to lose that money or part thereof, but you start understanding the mechanics. And then all at once that light bulb goes on and says, okay, I understood what averaging means. I understood what diversification means and why it makes sense. And then you don't find the things that make most sense boring anymore. And I think almost by definition, you're not going to enter with 100,000 euros. You're going to enter with 50. You're going to enter with 100. So that's the money that, in my opinion, you can afford losing. And you're going to get so much education out of it by going that route that all at once it makes the rest exciting. Might be a bit of a controversial take, but that's my experience so far.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Barbot, for being on board of this fireside chat here today. I think it was a really interesting conversation and a good opening segment to this whole conference event regarding micro savings. We talk about smaller scale savings and pensions with larger scale, and then how you're going to complement it in the end with life insurance. So thank you very much for kicking off our event here today. It was a pleasure to have you on today's session.
Thanks so much for having me.
Perfect. So thanks, Barbot. And then Max, I will pass it back to you in the studio.